Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Talkback Thursday, presented by the Jay and Susie Googe Performing Arts Center here at Auburn University. I'm Christopher Hecox, Executive Director of the Googe Center, and today joining me is Jeremy Denk. Jeremy is going to be here on Sunday, March 13th at 2 p.m. in the Waltos Theater, performing Book 1 of the Well-Tempered Clavier. Jeremy, good to see you today.
Nice to see you too.
Really excited about having you here. Just want to, for those of those individuals in our audience that may not know much about you, maybe a little bit just an introduction to you and what you do.
Well, I'm obviously a classical pianist. I play a pretty wide range of repertoire, from Renaissance to like yesterday. So I like very varied and unusual programs. I do record and play a lot of Bach, and I also do a lot of writing. I used to do a lot of blogging, and now I've just finished a book. So I do a lot of writing and communicating about music as part of my life too. Yeah.
So I have to. It's always fun to be able to reconnect, and you're never going to remember this, but I have to throw it out there. So I actually presented you in 2013 with Joshua Bell in a
I'm not
recital
surprised.
in Florida many years ago.
Yeah. We
But
went on tour every year for many years. Yeah.
exactly, for a long time. But it's great to reconnect and to have you come and do this recital. But speaking of Bach, I mean, I know you're doing Well-Tempered Clavier, but I wanted to ask you a question about Goldberg because that's always kind of the Goldberg variations, one of those things, and you've written about it as well. I was fortunate enough to work with Simona Dinnerstein and Pam Tanowitz on their. I don't know if you got to see it in New York, the Goldberg variations set to dance that
I
Pam
didn't
did.
see it, sadly. No, I
Yeah,
wish I had.
it was a wonderful thing to work on. But there's just been so many recordings, and there's just so much conversation about it. Just wondering if you could, tell us a little bit about your experience with it, where you maybe are at with it right now or not.
I stopped playing it now for a couple of years. I just weirdly you should ask because I just started playing at it and practicing it a little bit again
Hmm.
now. I think it's one of those pieces by nature it's kind of an overdose. It's
Yeah.
like 80 minutes of the same chord progression over and over again. And I think it works so well for the modern audience for that reason. It has this kind of virality or kind of you know and and it's such a happening, right?
Hmm.
Of a piece. And I used to do it. I don't know. I've played it a couple hundred times now,
Hmm.
and I love it. I love it particularly because it has this magical combination of the most profound and serene music with the most witty, silly, rambunctious. It kind of contains multitudes, as
Yeah.
you'd say. Yeah. Yeah.
So how does that kind of does it speak to you in how you approach what you're doing now, with book one, or is it just completely different? Or I'm just wondering because there are just it's 24 variations, themes
You
and
know, it's
variations.
it's very interesting. I compare them a lot because the Goldbergs, basically, if you get rid of all the repeats, is basically 35 minutes of music, more or
Right.
less, depending on how fast or slow you play it. Um, Whereas this piece is 2 hours solid of all different music, no repeats, right? And all the Goldbergs is basically the same chords. So this piece is a much bigger world and much less able to be contained in a tidy narrative. But I do like to play the first prelude again at the end, which is stealing a kind of a Goldberg's trick to hear the circle, to close the circle and
Yeah.
hear. I think it's so important in this piece because the last fugue is a incredible message of kind of doubt and chromatic weirdness and
Hmm.
distance. It's one of the most bizarre and beautiful things that Bach ever wrote, and I think it's so great to hear. You're there at B minor, and you just cross one more note back, and you come around and you feel this, just like in the Goldbergs, idyllic sense of closure. My favorite metaphor for the Well-Tempered Clavier is Noah's Ark. It's like
Oh,
two of every. It's the major and minor of every key. Filing by. It's like every kind of musical animal. Yeah.
that's a great way of looking at it. I think that's wonderful. So what should our audiences kind of look for or listen for when they're coming this weekend to hear you play uh, this book one?
Well, it's a piece that I've lived with now for a long time, and that I was supposed to tour several years ago until COVID things happened. And so I hope that it feels like a conversation with, look, these pieces were intended, Bach said, as teaching pieces,
Right.
but I think they're the wildest, most genial, heartbreaking, emotional, rhapsodic set of lessons ever written. And they set down, these pieces like lay down laws about how music should go in a certain way, but they also break all the same laws that they lay down. So I hope that people hear, Bach's tremendous command of harmonies, his attempt to create a whole musical universe, and it's also, if I might say, Bach wrote this, it's 300 years ago, right? This is the 300th anniversary of this masterwork. And it's kind of a summary of his first 20 years as a compositional person, his whole best thoughts, little ditties that he wrote for his kids that he suddenly decided to make into the masterpieces, and other things, really thorny adventures that he decided. So it's like a complete picture of Bach's way of thinking about music and the world. That's a pretty tall order, I guess.
That is a tall order, but it's a great explanation. So one of the questions that I have you been able to get out on the road since things have started to open up a little bit and play this yet, or are you just kind of, is it just starting now? So just wondering what your experience has been taking it out on the road, if you've been able to so far.
I played it in New York in December, which was great because I have all my old and familiar audience there, and it was like a kind of a family feeling almost, playing in the 92nd Street Y, this piece.
Oh yes.
And I've been playing it here and there, definitely all spring. I've been going more or less for 3 months now on tour, so I feel very fortunate, and it's something to get used to. But yeah, no, the piece is very much in my world, and I'm also taking it to London and England generally for a big tour in May, and so it's still very much in my life.
So was it a part of your life during COVID when we were all we were all at home and we were just kind of trying to figure things out in the beginning of the pandemic? What was your relationship with it or with music at that time?
Well, I was supposed to tour this piece when everything got canceled, and so there was a little bit of heartbreak at the beginning, and I couldn't really practice for a couple weeks. I felt like not really. So, but then I started to make these little videos about the piece, and that felt good. Sort of going into it in detail and talking through them, and in a way, they're pieces that you're supposed to think about, not just hear, but that you're supposed to sort of wonder how they might go. What are they supposed to do? What are the journeys that each view, is about? And also, what's the character of every piece? So I did spend a lot of time early in the pandemic mulling on them and having a great deal of fun, and they were a great solace, which is great because when I was a kid, these are the pieces your piano teacher makes you practice for auditions and every possible stressful occasion when you're you have to play these pieces. And I think I've completely gotten rid of that trauma in the process.
That's good. We're with Jeremy Denk, pianist, who's going to be here this weekend at the Goose Center in the Waltos Theater on the 13th, on Sunday, March 13th, 2 p.m., playing Book 1 of the Well-Tempered Clavier, Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier. Jeremy, I want to move on to the book, Every Good Boy Does Fine, that's coming out on March 22nd. I believe pre-orders are available now online. Yes.
Thank you for the people at Random House. Well, thank you for mentioning.
Yes, I did. I made sure to check my Amazon account this morning. So, but this started with an article in the New Yorker, and just wanted to kind of ask you, maybe to tell us, from that to a book, how did that happen?
It took me a long time to figure out how I could make a bigger book, but the New Yorker piece was basically a love letter to two teachers that I had in my life. One when I was more or less 12, and the other one 10 years later, in my early 20s. And the vast differences between them and the different things that they brought to me. But then, as my editor and I talked, it's like I had so many other teachers, and there were so many other incredibly emotional and fraught moments in the process of getting together the confidence to be a classical musician and dealing with, my own identity and but also, just the normal run of insecurities and what is music for, and is it about dealing with your own emotions, and I had a very strange childhood, which was, our family was very kind of emotionally reticent, and so as I began to think about all these different moments, I thought, oh yeah, I can thread together a memoir from my first piano lesson to my last, more or less. And then in between, I was like, I can just write about music in a free-flowing way and include parts of my life that didn't get included in the memoir parts, thread them in, and that's what I've ended up with. Yeah.
That's great. So again, it's Every Good Boy Does Fine, a Love Story in Music Lessons. Comes out on March 22nd, Random House and Penguin Random House.
Yeah.
Pre-orders are available online right now. Your favorite online seller or at your local bookstore.
We're doing an event on March 22nd where I'll play and talk and stuff, and you can go to that if you want, or that gives you a little extra bonus. And there's also the audiobook. I'm playing a lot on it.
Oh, are you?
I should
So
mention
we get
that.
it on we get it on Audible or on whatever other platform you're playing on that as well.
I'm playing, yeah, because a lot of the book is talking about music, so there's little bits of my playing in between to illustrate this and that, and I think that'll be, for some people, a better version of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might have to go ahead and pre-order it today then. I know I have some credits on Audible, so. So you're going to do kind of a little bit of the book release tour type thing as well in New York. I know. So if people wanted to get more information about that, they can go to your website, jeremydenk.com.
I think so. Yeah, a lot of that should be on my website now. I haven't checked, but also on Twitter, I'm often indicating various things that are about to happen. But there'll be events in Boston, Philadelphia, San Francisco, New York, St. Louis, Washington, I'm pretty sure.
Great.
And a bunch of other places,
Wonderful.
And I'll be blathering, in my.
Well, no, it's great. And I was reading, some of the, Conrad Tal wrote, a little something about the book. You always have people that have written things, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. And I read your memoir, but I think it does speak to a lot of us. I mean, those of us that went to conservatory, but also that just had a college experience or had experience with teachers, it really, I mean, I know it's your story about music lessons, but we've all had either that coach or that music teacher that gave us the confidence or developed us in a way that really shaped us who we are today. So I think, to your point, that it's, your story through music, I think it can touch a lot of people because of experiences they've had with a teacher or mentor or coach or whatnot.
I hope that it does. It's, the book is partly a love letter to music itself.
Yes.
But it's mostly, and I think the best parts for me is, these amazing love letters to various teachers, all of whom had such different perspectives, all of whom were engaged in what is often a very thankless task of trying to get young idiots to listen to their advice, And I was a consummate idiot in many ways, and I hope the book is funny in the sense that I try to chronicle, my poor teachers trying to beat through my head the most basic stuff, that I for whatever reason wouldn't absorb. Yeah.
But a lot of times it's not even about the music when they're trying to teach us. There are other things that lead us where we need to go.
Well, music is so full of metaphors for everyday life things and our emotional world. It's like kind of an amazing mirror of ourselves, and I think that's hopefully in the book too a little bit.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Jeremy. Jeremy Denk, pianist Jeremy Denk, with us today. Will be at the Goose Center in the Waltos Theater on Sunday, March 13th, 2 p.m. Jeremy, we're looking forward to having you down here, and safe travels. And thank you for being with us today.
It's a pleasure. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Bye.